Let's talk about NIL. This is a topic of conversation that is going to get Georgia fans heated if they're not heated already, but it is a big topic right now in college football. And if you're a Georgia fan, you're still probably a little triggered with what happened last week. Five-star Jackson Cantwell committing to Miami over Georgia in a recruitment that was heavily NIL based. So we're going to talk about it because Kirby Smart had a lot to say about NIL to Paul Feinbaum earlier this week, and he expressed a lot of concerns that he has right now. But before I dig into that, I do believe, and I just want to say this before we really dig into it, I think that sometime soon there will be a level playing field. But right now we are in a weird time in college football where it's basically the wild, wild west. Kirby Smart is not happy. And I don't think any head coach or assistant coach in college football is happy with where things are as it relates to NIL. Maybe Miami is. Miami loves the fact that NIL is a big deal as far as getting recruits. Texas, Ohio State, there's a lot of programs. And I'm not saying Georgia's not playing the NIL game, but as I've reported on for a while now, Georgia's not a program that's going to hand over a blank check and have the biggest offer on the table. That's just not how they do it. But here's what Kirby Smart had to say to Paul Feinbaum. If you missed it, earlier this week, he said, we just want it to be in a way that's sustainable. I just want to be able to have a freshman come in and not make more than a senior, which, yeah, I totally get that. More on that in just a minute. He said, and I'd like for other sports to be able to still survive. You know, we're on the brink of probably 1 or 2 years away from a lot of schools cutting sports. What's the pushback going to be when you start cutting non-revenue sports? I don't want that to happen. Now, a lot of this is still over my head. I'm a Kennesaw State grad. I still need to read into more of this, but I do think at some point the plan is to have these programs and universities all have a level playing field as far as a dollar amount goes that they can distribute to all sports. Now, one university or athletic department can use it all on football or all on a quarterback and say no one else is getting anything. Or you have, athletic departments who distribute it evenly among all sports, right? So we'll see. Now, that doesn't stop a Nike from coming in and helping out kids who go to Oregon or Oregon State or so on and so on, right? There's still big companies who can make deals with kids, Athens Ford, so on and so on, right? But, on paper, at some point, I do think there will be a level playing field. Now, I don't know when it's coming. It could be this summer, right? It could be in a year or two, but at some point, things have to change. But Kirby Smart saying, hey, we're not paying a freshman to come in who's making more than a multi-year starter who's been here 3 years, right? And has been starting and wasn't necessarily around for this peak. And I think we might be at a peak of NIL and how much these top high school prospects are getting paid. I mean, they have agents. Jackson Cantwell has Drew Rosenhaus as his agent, right? Getting him through this NIL process. So for the Miami fans that, were up in arms talking about, oh, he only went to Miami for the staff and they're a winning program and they always do things right. That wasn't it. If Drew Rosenhaus is your agent, that's all you need to know, okay? Money played a major part in that decision. And I know he's not going to tell reporters that, even though I wish some of these kids had more honesty and said, hey, they showed me a bigger bag. They wrote me a bigger check. Of course I'm going to go there, right? I would respect that. But the point remains, these kids are taking these visits and they're telling these coaches, hey, I want this amount or I'm going somewhere else. And Kirby Smart and these other coaches, they're saying our experienced safety, our experienced wide receiver, our left guard, our center, who's a big part of our team, they're not even making anywhere close to that. We're not doing this because if you do, you're killing team chemistry, right? These guys know how much the other kids are making. This is basically a mini NFL right now. And these kids are on NIL contracts to a certain extent. I had a Georgia coach tell me, I think almost 2 years ago now, at a practice watching a big-time Georgia prospect who signed with Georgia. And they said, man, that's the first question these kids want to ask me is how much can I make? NIL, what's going on there? And, that one coach, that insider said, we're competing with all these other programs who are just going above and beyond and putting these kids on, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year deals. And I've got to try to compete with that. And I can't necessarily win them over with just development and say, hey, this is what guys that I coach are making in the NFL. We're playing in the playoffs every year. We won 2 national championships. There's some guys that means a lot still. But it is definitely different. Kirby Smart had more to say to Paul Feinbaum. Again, Paul Feinbaum. The issue is the inability to pinpoint what the rules are and what we can do. That's what Kirby said. We just want to know the parameters in which we're playing by and be able to sustain a budget. There's no old school, young school. There's none of that. We're comfortable paying players, and the players should get paid, right? But we got to get some guidelines, right? We're just throwing money out left and right to some of these kids, and then they transfer and get money somewhere else. It to a lot of Georgia fans and college football fans in general, it is maddening, and I get it. My whole point is that it still matters. Recruiting still matters. I have to say that basically every video. I'm trying to talk some of y'all off the ledge. I see comments all the time. I'm losing interest in college football. This is all crazy. Some people still don't like the fact that kids are getting paid. And that you're going to have to get over that. They deserve it. They should. But we still need some rules. We still need some guidelines. And Kirby's saying, we can't pinpoint the rules. Everyone's doing whatever they're doing. We've got to get on a level playing field. And I think that's coming. I don't know if Nick Saban can be, the president of all of this, or I don't know. I don't know. But someone who is a big face in the game and a highly respected person who's probably coached before many years, who knows college football inside and out, has to come out and say, hey, this is what's going to work, because it's not working now. And you've got programs just offering blank checks to kids and doing whatever they can to get them. And at the last minute, too. I've covered recruiting for 10 years now. It was a lot easier when I could develop relationships with these prospects, their coaches, their parents, follow the visits, get updates after official visits. And sometimes, actually a lot of times, I'll get an inside scoop on where they plan to go. Now, I got to start talking to agents and people dealing with money. That's not what I do, and that's not what I want to do. But I can't call Drew Rosenhaus Tuesday morning and be like, hey, what's the deal here with Jackson? What's the latest, right? I've been covering the kid for 2 years now, but now I have no idea where he's going, because we're figuring out NIL stuff, right? And that's just what it is, unfortunately. However, there are kids who choose to go to Georgia and leave money on the table. And if you're a Georgia fan, those are your boys, right? Those are the guys that you want, all right? Georgia fans want kids coming to Georgia because they love the G and they're passionate about Georgia football. They love the school, and they're team guys and not me guys. And sometimes that happens, but Georgia's still paying a lot of these big-time prospects money. I mean, that's just is what it is. There was a big-time starter who's in the NFL right now who almost transferred because of NIL. And Kirby, had the day after day, I was told, had to say, okay, we'll match that. We'll match that. That's not a kid that they could let walk out the door. He was a big deal. So it's unfortunate that NIL and the transfer portal kind of came into play at the same time. But kids are making a lot of money now, and that is what it is. And I don't blame kids for taking money. I just would like them to say, hey, I can better my family with this instant money right now. That's why I went to this school, right? That little honesty goes a long way, and I can respect that. But for a lot of kids, and I'm not singling out Jackson Cantwell in Miami, or I'm almost done with that conversation, and don't want to bring it up again. But in some cases, kids won't even bring up NIL, even though that's the major reason why they chose this school or that school. Just be honest, right? Money's good. People want money, right? No one's in everyday life. People will choose a job if it's the same as another job if one is giving them more money, right? You have to have money to live. And if kids are being shown $500,000 to sign, I don't blame them. Blame the game. Don't necessarily blame the kid, because a lot of times these kids don't love Georgia the way you do. Whoever's watching this video right now, you love the Georgia football program and the team and the school more than the average 4 or 5 star kid who has no connection to Georgia whatsoever, right? They're not immediately going to Georgia just because they grew up in the state and because Georgia wanted them. If they have no connection to the school or the program, their parents didn't go there and any of that, Georgia doesn't have an inside track with those guys, especially when programs across the country are offering them this type of money. But Kirby Smart's saying, we're comfortable paying the players. We just need some parameters. We need to we need some rules. We need some guidelines here. And we don't want to pay a freshman more than a senior. And we don't want a senior making more than his position coach. That's happening too. Not necessarily at Georgia because the assistant coaches are making a lot of money, but at other programs, a lot of these kids are getting almost or just the amount of money that the guy coaching them is. And that's a dangerous avenue that we are kind of flirting with and going down that type of road. And it's not good. It needs to change, and I think it will soon. So just a little bit of rant on NIL and Kirby Smart's thoughts and concerns about NIL that he told Paul Feinbaum. You can read more about this and other Georgia football team and recruiting news over on Dawg Post. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the website.